and welcome to round 7 of Grand Prix Hartford Modern. Murray Bartholdi in the booth with JVL. There you've got William Huey Jensen on the right side of your screen, ranked number 10 in the entire world, versus Mike Sigrist on Black Red Hollow One. In fact, it is a Hollow One mirror match, but Sigrist gets to be on the play, which I bet is pretty important, JVL.
Yeah, being on the play is going to be very important in this matchup. The major difference here between their two lists is that Mike Sigrist does not have Lingering Souls and instead has access to Collective Brutality. So here we're going to see in the mirror match which of these versions comes out ahead. I imagine that means that William Huey Jensen is a slight favorite with those Lingering Souls, but being on the draw, I imagine that's going to hurt him a little bit too, so it should be interesting stuff.
Flameblade Adept in play for Mike Sigrist already. A very nice card in this deck. Able to get large very quickly and out of control.
I find myself losing so many games to the Flameblade Adept.
So do I. I'm like, it's fine. It's just a 1-2. No. It does certainly not stay a 1-2 for long.
It like regularly attacks for 6-ish on turn 2.
Both players sitting at 5-1 here in round 7. One more round to go after this. Hoping to battle to come back for day 2. As we mentioned, Reid Duke also in the feature match area this round, as well as his teammate Owen Turtenwald, the whole Peach Garden Oath here. We'll take a look at their matches later this round. Goblin Lore here from Mike Sigrist. Let's spin the wheel. What do we get? Draw 4. Discard at random. All right. Those ones heading to the graveyard. Flamewake Phoenix in there. Sigrist doesn't particularly care that those 3, that was one of the 3 discarded.
I believe he also discarded a Bloodghast. That was a real nice Goblin Lore.
Oh, yeah, he sure did.
Oof.
Meanwhile, that Flameblade Adept is growing enormously. Huey here going to go find a land, see if he has anything to say about this Adept.
It looks like he has a lightning bolt here.
Yeah. Sure enough, bolt, down goes the Adept.
A newer card, making some waves in Modern here. Flameblade Adept.
I always liked that card from the first time I saw it. I was like, this little jackal pup might just be a thing.
Yeah. 1-mana jackals tend to affect competitive Magic worlds.
Faithless Looting here from Huey. So far, no Hollow Ones have made an appearance. Looks like we're going to discard some mountains, potentially.
And we've seen this deck do very degenerate things earlier on stream.
Oh, yes.
This is the longest we've gone watching Black Red Hollow One not put a Hollow One into play.
Accurate. We've seen this deck on camera several times today. Always looking very impressive and consistent. Able to battle back through things like Leyline of the Void, which you think would just nearly take it down. We're going to Faithless Loot yet again.
Interesting decision here for Huey. Contemplating whether or not he wants to put the Lingering Souls into his graveyard so that he can cast it for a discounted cost, or if he'd just rather keep it in his hand so he can use both sides of the card.
Burning Inquiry going into the graveyard along with the Lingering Souls.
Yeah, prioritizing keeping lands in his hand a little bit higher than one might expect. Held on to a Sacred Foundry and a mountain there.
Do you think he suspects this game might just be going a little longer?
I imagine. Mirrors tend to go longer because, you know, your cards often trade with each other. You know, Gurmag anglers trade with Gurmag anglers and so on and so forth. So maybe settling in for a little bit longer of a match. I'm also really interested to see things like that because that's not a line that I would have made. And
Sure.
Huey's somebody who's a lot better than me. So when I see him do that, I want to, make note of that so that we can watch how it plays out through the course of the game and see why he might have done it.
Here's a burning inquiry from Mike Sigrist. No, usually really gets people, but in this case, well, Huey's got a bunch of his own as well. Oh, that was a good hit. Hollow One and Gurmag Angler into the yard for Jensen.
Yeah, probably the two cards that Jensen would have wanted to discard the least.
And look at this. Mike Sigrist has a Gurmag Angler of his own, but his isn't in the graveyard, coming into play here for just a single black mana thanks to Delve. And passes it back. Sometimes you just need a 5/5.
Gurmag Angler has been so good in Modern. Just a great size for the way the format is currently set up. A lot less Path of Exiles around recently. Can't die to Fatal Push. Can't die to Lightning Bolt.
Grixis Death Shadow, notably, kind of, I think, bringing this monster to us.
And I think, Patrick Chapin was very quick to talk about the Delve creatures being very strong in Modern, and his predictions of them making a big splash in this format turned out to be very true.
I know that Huey has a Goblin Lore in hand. Sacred Foundry. There's another Burning Inquiry as well. And that's what he's going to go for. This match is just weird.
Yeah, this is super weird.
Just everybody drawing cards, discarding randomly. Who knows what'll happen?
Yeah, obviously better to be drawing and discarding at random on your own turn, because then you can use those discard triggers for hollow ones.
Right. But let's see what he got. Oh, another Gurmag Angler, as well as a land and a Goblin Lore for Sigrist. Seeing if Huey has a follow-up play yet this turn. Sacred Foundry. We're going to flash back the Lingering Souls. And pass back.
Yeah, and that's the major difference between these two deck lists here, is Huey has Lingering Souls, Mike Sigrist has Collective Brutality. Lingering Souls could prove itself to be really good in a racing situation. Very nice card for chump blocking things like Gurmag Angler. Also quite good at double blocking Flameblade Adepts.
Huey Jensen, of course, your reigning world champion. Sigrist making a very deep run the last Pro Tour. Bloodghast coming back here for Sigrist. As well as a Flame Wake Phoenix. Spirit is on chump block duty, jumps in front of that Angler. Jensen will take 2. A third Bloodghast past the turn back. Yeah, Huey is not in a good place right now.
No, not at all. And, this deck does have some element of random to it. Yeah, some.
I'd say.
So, the mirror, I'm sure, can be a very interesting animal.
Okay, here we go. More random discard. Another hollow one hits the yard for Jensen. Flamewake Phoenix ends up in there as well. Going to cycle that Street Wraith for 2 life. Draws another bolt, so he has double bolt. Flamewake Phoenix in hand as well as a Flameblade Adept. Plays the Adept, throws the turn back over to Sigrist.
Yeah, he'll likely be chump blocking the Angler again. Taking a bunch of damage here.
Sigrist with the bolt in hand as well. It's going to take down the Adept. Can't even block. Spirit chumps in front of the Angler. He was to take 8 down to 3. Lingering Souls.
Oh, he does have Lingering Souls. Okay.
And that'll be enough. William Jensen scoops him up. Mike Sigrist taking game 1 of this match against 10th in the world, William Jensen, the Black-Red Hollow 1 mirror. Okay, so the main match here, game 1, is already bizarre with a lot of crazy discard, randomness. What on earth does sideboarded games look like?
So post-board, Big Game Hunter is going to be a huge card for both of these players. Able to deal with cards like Tasker the Golden Fang, Hollow One, or Gurmag Angler here. And oftentimes with insane levels of value because you're drawing cards and then instead of actually having to spend cards from your hand, you actually get to cast it for its madness cost. Another huge card here is Leyline of the Void. Huey has 4 copies of Leyline of the Void, whereas Mike Sigrist only has 3. But I think those are really the big cards here. There are Ancient Grudges in their sideboards, which are very strong against Hollow One, but not very good against the rest of the deck. So it's it's a card that might be worth bringing in because you don't really lose a lot of value by bringing it in a deck like this because you're just able to draw them and then discard them, and then when your opponent has a Hollow One, you can just pay green mana and flash it back. So if you don't have a target, you can just pitch it. Not a big deal.
How many copies of Big Game Hunter do they each have access to?
They both have 2 Big Game Hunters. They both have 2 Ancient Grudges. And Mike has 3 Leyline of the Void, whereas Huey has 4 copies of Leyline of the Void.
Leyline of the Void was card of the match a couple matches ago, selected by Melissa DeTora. It has seemed to make quite an appearance here this weekend out of the board for a lot of decks. Why do you think it's so important?
So Leyline of the Void is a card that shuts off your opponent's graveyard entirely and starts on the battlefield, which is really important against these Hollow One decks. If you're playing a card like Rest in Peace, sometimes it can actually be too late. The Hollow One deck comes out so fast, and on the second turn they can already have abused their graveyard. They can already have put in something like a Gurmag Angler or Tasker onto the battlefield. Starting with Leyline on the battlefield means that your opponent can't use their graveyard at all. Just a really, really powerful spell. Also just good against a lot of different decks, and when you're playing against a deck like, or when you're playing with a deck like Hollow One, it doesn't affect your own graveyard, where a lot of graveyard hate cards are, double-sided.
Sure. And plenty of decks that care about the graveyard running around for you to have to deal with that. It becomes a pretty solid sideboard inclusion. Of course, Black-Red Hollow One, a really interesting deck, relatively new. Is capable of playing any number of Hollow Ones on turn 1. Yeah, but it's also so strong because it has the other axes of attacking or using its graveyard to bring creatures back.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why this Hollow One deck is so powerful is not only does it have this explosive start where it can just play a bunch of 4/4s on the first turn, cast 4/5s or 5/5s on the second turn very easily, but it also, in a long game, just ends up grinding opponents out who are trying to stop it with removal spells via cards like Bloodghast and or Flamewake Phoenix. So a really powerful card, or really powerful deck with a lot of longevity and a lot of explosiveness, access to a lot of powerful sideboard cards.
I'm noticing here Sigrist's list also a single Tasigur the Golden Fang, just for its ability to be a 4/5.
Yeah, and yeah, Huey also that one copy of Tasigur the Golden Fang. It looks like Mike Sigrist does have an additional copy of Gurmag Angler here.
Oh, interesting.
Over Huey, which is definitely an important card in this mirror match. All about finding those big threats to turn on other cards.
So you can play along at home if you want. Tweet out with the hashtag what deck will win. Whatever deck you think is going to take down the whole tournament. Melissa has Black Red Hollow One. It certainly has had a great showing here on day one so far. JVL's got Humans, I have Boggles, Rich has Burn, and Marshall has Tron.
I think these are all defensible choices.
I agree. Mine's the most defensible, though.
I mean, right now, yours does seem to have the most people with undefeated records, for what it's worth.
Just brush off my shoulders a little bit there.
This time, Huey's on the play, which could be a big deal.
All right, there's Flameblade Adept turn 1, no Hollow Ones, but this little menace creature has proven to be quite a menace for other players so far today.
Mike Sigrist has a Flameblade Adept of his own, but is instead choosing to leave open mana here for a Lightning Bolt. So, understanding his role on the draw is to be a little more reactive here.
Faithless Looting here from Jensen, Bloodghast into the yard.
Attention Magic players in the 330 two-headed giant.
Burning Inquiry joins them.
Round 1 are now being posted. Once again, Magic
And there's Lightning Bolt from Sigrist.
two-headed giant for pairings for round 1 are now being posted.
Back comes the Ghast over to Mike.
And this is an interesting dance that happens here. These early creatures likely just trading with bolts back and forth. And the big creatures come down and start running into one another.
Well, here we go, trading lightning bolts for Flameblade Adepts on both sides of the battlefield. Sigrist tries to stick his own Huey bolt. Now he's the one with the threat in play in the form of that Bloodghast, Goblin Lore in hand, as well as another Bloodghast. Here comes the Lore. This is an interesting card. It makes for a decision, right? Say you have something in hand, like say Huey had a Gurmag Angler in hand, for example. Mm-hmm. What do you do?
I think you have to go for it. I think, the way the deck is set up, sometimes you're going to discard that Gurmag Angler, and
there it is.
There you go. And it's no fun at all, but he did, however, draw a Hollow One for his trouble.
So there you go. It's still a little smaller.
Yeah.
Bloodghast chips in for 2.
And getting the opponent down to 10, really important in this mirror match, I imagine, because you want those Bloodghasts to start to have haste, so they can keep running in, not just on every other turn cycle.
Ooh, Sigrist here drawing a Hollow One of his own. Big Game Hunter, you mentioned it. There it was. Hardcast, Not Even Madness, takes down the Hollow One. And there's a Lightning Bolt as an answer from Jensen. All right, Faithless Looting on the flashback here. There's a Leyline of the Void that Jensen found.
Yeah, and this is a pretty nice find for Huey, because what he's going to be able to do here is discard a land and this Bloodghast, then play a land, returning that Bloodghast to the battlefield, and then he'll have the 4 lands necessary to
This is great.
cast Leyline in the following turn.
Back comes the other Bloodghast, and remember, Leyline of the Void, one-sided.
Yeah, one important thing to note about Leyline of the Void, however, is that it doesn't exile the cards that are already in the graveyard, like a Rest in Peace would.
Okay.
So Mike can still use his graveyard for Delve if he needed to. Now he doesn't have a graveyard, so it doesn't matter, but...
Well, Gurmag Angler for Sigrist.
Huey not sacrificing that fetch land. He's going to want to attack with both of these Bloodghasts before he does so. By attacking with both of these Bloodghasts, he will then get in 2 points. Mike may not even block because he will block, but he might have chosen not to because of the threat of Lightning Bolt finishing off that Gurmag Angler.
As it stands, Sigrist will just take 2 here. Bloodghast primed to come right on back. Sigrist down to 13. Here you go, flashback another Faithless Looting. Yeah, now Leyline of the Void goes into the bin.
He decides that, now that Mike has already used that graveyard to delve out the Gurmag Angler, the Leyline of the Void has, lost a bit of power. It's no longer really worth his time.
Oh, nice rip there for Huey. Hollow one right off the top. Thanks to that Street Wraith. I was going to ask, do you just keep the Street Wraith so you can just hard cast it?
I guess that's a good point.
I mean, it can't be hunted.
It cannot be hunted.
Can't be bolted.
I think it worked out well for him, though, finding that hollow one.
Yep. Turns out Huey just got there anyway.
Hollow One, a really, really great card for Modern. Again, we've talked about things not being able to be fatal pushed and the value of that in this format, and I think it's been showcased this weekend more than ever before.
Sigrist now with the Hollow One of his own. Passes back over to Jensen, Faithless Looting. I feel like it's Faithless Looting number 10 at least for Huey this game.
Now Huey does, however, have a Lightning Bolt, and if he does attack with both of these Bloodghast before playing his land again, I find it hard to believe that Gurmag Angler will not jump in front of one of them.
Goblin Lore here for Huey. All right, you're putting those 3 in the graveyard. And there's Tasigur. Do you think these players have sideboarded out their Flamewake Phoenixes?
It looks like they probably have. I think they both were expecting some amount of graveyard interaction from the opponent. So, instead of trying to fight on that axis, they're going to, hedge a little bit. They still have their Bloodghast in, but a card like Flamewake Phoenix maybe got boarded out. Though the flying on Flamewake Phoenix is very good in this matchup. And the fact that your opponent's Flamewake Phoenixes always have to attack means that it's always going to be getting in.
It'll be interesting to see if we force a game 3 here if they come back. Another Hollow One here for Sigrist. Back over to Jensen. Flashback, another Faithless Looting, number 11. I think I'm on now. Jeez. All right, Lingering Souls and Bloodghast into the graveyard. Flameblade Adept onto the table. Come on, hardcast that Street Wraith. You know you want to.
I mean, it seems pretty good here, right? It's a 3/4. It's unblockable. There we go. Hardcast Street Wraith.
Yes.
This is like the 3rd hardcast Street Wraith we've seen on camera so far today, I think.
It is. I love it.
Once again, 5 p.m. Chaos Steel players.
Nothing dishonest about it. There it is.
Yeah, and
I paid 5 mana for this.
this is something you don't see. You often don't see people who are, just picking up this deck, hardcast their Street Wraiths very often. But, when you watch Mike Sigrist, when you watch Owen Turtenwald, when you watch Huey Jensen, this is something that comes up pretty often. The best players in the world finding the path to make the most out of their cards.
All right, we're going to flash back these Lingering Souls, mentioning flyers and how good they are currently on this board. Jensen's now got two of them. Bolt is going to take down the Adept. And Burning Inquiry. Here we go.
Yeah.
I love it. Huey doesn't look.
Huey never looks.
Discipline. All right, which one card would you like to keep? You get this one. Okay, great.
Oh,
nice. Big Game Hunter here. On the madness.
Yeah, so Mike Sigrist, Burning Inquiry, punished him. Big Game Hunter, we talked about it before this game, how this is really, one of the most important cards in post-boarded games here.
That card right now was big game. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, before you mentioned that Street Wraith cannot be hunted. It's not quite big enough game.
Right.
And I think
there it is.
That may be a really important factor in this game.
I'm sorry, everyone. I couldn't help it. Ooh, another Big Game Hunter in hand for Huey here. Take down a hollow one. All right, well, he is slowly but surely grinding his way through this match, turning all of his creatures sideways.
Yeah. And I like this line quite a bit.
Only one card in hand left for both players. Hollow one blocks Hollow one. Street Wraith blocks a Bloodghast. Passes back. Faithless Looting. And Sigrist is going to scoop him up. William Jensen forces a game 3 in this match here in round 7 of Grand Prix Hartford. Black-red Hollow one on black-red Hollow one. Madness, discard, randomness action.
Yeah, I think the big thing that happened in that game was Mike Sigrist casting Burning Inquiry, drawing and discarding a Big Game Hunter for William Huey Jensen.
Right.
So he was able to madness that card off of his opponent's card.
It was all just downhill from there.
Yeah. And it looked like Mike was starting to stabilize. He had a very reasonable board.
He had that Street Wraith in play.
It was a swamp walking beast, It's just ready to get in. I believe it's actually its creature type is probably spirit or ghost, something like that, but
Street Wraith? Wraith.
It's Wraith. Oh. I like it.
Ghost. Don't insult a Wraith
Ghost.
with something like that. I don't actually know the difference. A Wraith seems like more evil and like it wants to like scream. I don't know. No, that's a Banshee. I don't know.
Spooky city dweller. Street Wraith.
I wish that was a creature type.
Yeah.
So we mentioned during this match, it'll be really interesting to see how they sideboard for game 3, or if they do, once again. If Huey did, it was very quick.
Yeah, the sideboarding between game 2 and 3 here, probably does not change much. The play draw is a different kind of game plan for both of these decks, but I imagine the configuration probably looks pretty similar
Okay.
for both players. Some cards we expected to see out of the board that we have not seen yet. Ancient Grudge from both players. Card that would have been good for either player to have drawn and or discarded.
I didn't ask you yet this weekend, JVL. What deck would you have brought to this tournament?
Humans.
You love that deck.
I've been playing a lot of Humans. It's really fun.
It is a really fun deck.
It
and
is.
It's not as straightforward as it looks on paper.
No, I've found myself, learning how to play particular matchups. I had matchups that when I first started playing the deck, I was not winning against a lot of the time, and now I find myself thinking of them as easy matchups. Meddling Mage is a really fun card to play with.
You just like locking your opponents out of doing certain things.
Yeah, but I also like being aggressive. I think that, Freebooter, Thalia, Meddling Mage, knowing the order to cast your cards in different matchups is just exciting. And, being able to apply pressure is also exactly where you want to be.
Hey, man. I love attacking. What can I say? By the way, after we're done here, after the end of round 8, we're not actually done, turns out. Rich is going to stay with you for some extra turns after round 8, where we take a look at some of the matches we didn't get to show you today because we do record a lot in our feature match area and don't have time enough in a round to show you everything often. So Rich is going to take you through some of the matches that we didn't get to show on camera, perhaps, he tells me, at an increased speed.
Oh, yeah, that would probably make it a little more enjoyable for the viewer.
Well, we'll find out, won't we?
Huey there, his opening hand had 2 copies of Leyline of the Void.
Oh, wow.
But it looked like he did not have the mana necessary to enact any sort of meaningful plan there. And he's going to be forced to send that hand back.
All right.
Sigrist's hand looked pretty good.
Did you get a peek? Does it have Hollow One? Tell me now. Turn 1 Hollow One.
I did see Hollow One. I did see Street Wraith.
All right. It might happen.
If there's Faithless Looting somewhere in the mix, that equals turn 1.
Did you read Frank Karsten's article on how likely it is to have X number of Hollow Ones in play on turn 1?
I have not.
Oh, it's so great.
It's good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like his mathy columns.
All right, Huey, happy with this 6. We are underway. There is a cycled Street Wraith from Mike Sigrist. Going to search up a land here, see if we can't put together something to get a Hollow One out on the table this turn.
I think he may have cycled into Faithless Looting here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
And that should do it. If he draws into another Hollow One, we're gonna get to see what this deck is really capable of.
Faithless Looting here from Mike Sigrist. Let's see what he finds. Another Street Wraith. Do you save it? Oh, he's 2. Or do you see what you can get?
I think you see what you can get with them.
It's kind of an interesting question, right? Because then you could just, you're getting cards, okay? So it's not terrible. But you're not saving them to be able to discard to a Flamebite Adept or potentially more Hollow Ones in the future.
Yeah, I think the thing is that right now, at this exact moment, he's discarded enough cards that if he does cycle into a Hollow One, it's just so powerful, it's probably worth just trying to draw it.
There we go!
He found it!
Speaking of...
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, does he have all of them? Does he have all 4? He might have 3 Street Wraiths in hand.
2. It's still kind of disgusting.
2 Hollow Ones, 2 4/4s in play. Turn 1, go.
Yeah, Huey has not even played a card yet.
There's no
they're a
land.
pair.
Look at oh, Huey.
Yeah, head and hands.
We feel you, buddy. But he can't be too mad. Look, he's trying to do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
All right, so Huey, the pressure is on in a big way from Mike Sigrist from turn 1 here in this game.
Yeah, Huey really needs to come up with his plan very, very, very quickly. Probably needs to do something like Faithless Looting into a big game hunter on the next turn. Madness it into play.
Also find a hollow one maybe.
Yeah.
Flameblade Adept is the play there for Jensen.
So, Sigrist. Oh, yeah. He also had a Bloodghast in the graveyard.
All right, I'll bring this Bloodghast back. No big deal. Plays a mountain for the turn. And a bolt taking down that Flameblade Adept. Oof, that's painful.
Yeah, I think at that point of the game, oh my goodness gracious.
Gurmag Angler, the follow-up play here for Sigrist.
He even bolted his opponent's creature. It's turn 2. He has 15 points of power on the table, and he's bolted his opponent's creature.
This is sick.
Yeah, so if you're looking for a deck that has a very, very high ceiling in terms of how powerful its draws can be,
here
look
you go.
no further
yes, this
than
is
Black-Red
insanity.
Hollow One.
What a deck. Love it or hate it, you've got to admit, this deck is a deck.
Oh, yeah. This is an exciting one.
All right, Huey is going to shake Mike Sigrist's hand. Sigrist takes down this match here in round 7, 2-1 over your reigning world champion, William Jensen. The two discussing what happened there, buddies. All right, so JVL, you know what it's time for. Card of the match. What do you pick?
Hollow One?
What? Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
There were 2 of them on the battlefield on turn 1.
Yeah, Hollow One's got to be the pick.
That was absurd.
You know, we're doing something kind of cool this show where we're compiling all of the cards of the matches from our match ones of every round, and we're going to take a look at them kind of at the end of the tournament and see the story of the tournament here. So take a look. Hollow One, there it is. I think we're going to get a chance to talk to Hollow One Pilot after this here. But yeah, like I said, in the feature match area, we had the entire Peach Garden Oath this round. So Reid Duke was playing down there. Owen Turtenwald was playing down there. We also had Paul Dean on a backup table as well.
So we may not have the interview? Do we have the interview?
They're getting ready. All right. Let's see who we've got down in our feature match area. It is Mike Sigrist. Hi, Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. All right, tell me, why did you want to bring Hollow One to this tournament, other than the fact that it's insane?
It's super explosive, and it can, you just saw that last draw in Game 3, that even its bad matchups, it can do that. And it's a lot more consistent than people would think, even though you're discarding cards at random. Its graveyard's like an extension of your hand, so it doesn't lose to itself as much as people might think with discarding random cards.
I want to know what your kind of mindset is when you're playing the feature match. The mirror match. You're playing the feature match, the mirror match. What are some of the keys to you? Does it play out differently?
Yeah, it can. It depends how explosive. It's basically just a race, and a lot of the games are actually decided by an unchecked Flame Speaker Adept. Is the name of the card, I believe.
Flameblade Adept.
Yeah, because it can deal so much damage early with just discard, like 2 discard spells in a row after you play it. So if the player on the draw, for instance, can't deal with it, it can deal 10 damage on its own, and it's basically impossible to block in this matchup because of the Blood Gas and Flamewake Phoenixes that can't really block well. So that is actually a pretty important card in the mirror, and obviously getting a quick Hollow One into play or Angler or something are the more important parts. But it really just comes down to whose inquiries and lures are better to them, and who can put more creatures into play faster.
Now, something I wanted to ask was how you really find room for these sideboard cards when you're playing a deck like Black Red Hollow One. The deck seems like there are so many like very important puzzle pieces, and if you take any of those discard outlets out or any of those threats out, the deck doesn't really do what you want it to do all the time. So when you're going to a second game, what are the cards that you find yourself taking out most often?
A lot of the graveyard creatures, actually. Flamewake Phoenixes and Bloodghast are cards you cut because your opponents are usually bringing in some kind of graveyard hate, so that you don't want to have too many of them. You still want some because when they don't draw them, they're so good, but and because, frankly, you just don't have room to cut all that stuff because your sideboard's only 15 cards. So you just want to trim that stuff so that a lot of your hands aren't super anemic against, a single Grafdigger's Cage or something like that. You just bring in your interactive cards and then board out some of your graveyard stuff and hope that your interactive stuff can help you carry you through the games. And your deck ends up being not as explosive in games 2 and 3.
Now, another card I wanted to ask about, especially for the mirror, is Ancient Grudge. Now, this is a card that you can just discard to one of your, random draw discard spells and have it sit there in the graveyard and maybe deal with the hollow one later. Is that worth it for the slot? I've seen competing arguments about this.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it depends how many like big game hunters and stuff. So against Huey there, I actually had them in on the draw and take them out on the play because I want to be more proactive on the play. Basically what I did is I switched the Lingering Souls and the Ancient Grudges because I didn't want to get run over too quickly. But I don't think they're great. It is nice to be able to have a free card to kill Hollow One, but at the same time you do want to, not be too reactive, and you want to, just have an aggressive game plan. So, like, obviously, Big Game Hunter is much better because it hits the Delve creatures too, and the Delve creatures are actually the biggest creatures and the hardest ones to kill in the matchup. So they kind of dominate the board. I haven't come to a conclusion. I guess it depends on your exact 75. Like we have Lingering Souls, something I talked with Owen and Huey about before this tournament. So I think we're like probably the only people playing that, and so. We can win races by just chump blocking with Lingering Souls, so you don't necessarily need to kill everything. And we don't have as many cards to take out because of that.
We've seen this deck on camera a bunch today. It looks so solid, and it's just able to attack from a couple of different axes. What don't you want to see across the table from you playing this?
To your liking, Slippery Boggle. I do not want to see that card. That is probably my scariest matchup.
All right, final question. How many Hollow Ones have you put into play on turn 1? What's your record?
You just saw it. That is my record.
2.
Yeah.
All right. Well done. Well, congratulations to you. Best of luck the rest of the tournament, Mike.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Well, that's really cool. These dugout interviews, a new addition to our GP coverage. Getting to talk to Mike Sigrist down there, get an insight into Black Red Hollow One. Really cool stuff.
Yeah, that was really interesting. I learned a lot.
All right. Well, let's have more magic after a few of these messages. Welcome back to the booth here at Grand Prix Hartford, where we're watching Modern. A lot of great action already. We're at the tail round of round 7 here at this Grand Prix. Marie Bartholdi joined by Jacob Van Lunen, and we've got some time walk magic for you here. Previously recorded this round, Reid Duke versus Greg Eichelberger. So Eichelberger in his 10th Grand Prix here on Affinity has never made day 2, facing the Duke as one of the N bosses to lock day 2 up. We'll see if he can do it. Reid Duke on Jund, currently sitting at 5-1.
Yeah, this is one of the most classical Modern matchups.
Yep.
Jund against Affinity. Traditionally, Jund does pretty well here, but you never want to count Affinity out of any matchup. It's fast enough that can run over any opponent. And Etch Champion is a card that has been giving Jund nightmares, keeping Jund players awake at night for
Reid Duke's tossing and
generations.
turning, holding his teddy bear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vault Scourge here for Greg, as well as an Ink Moth Nexus and Mox Opal.
Yeah, Reid may want to kill the Vault Scourge early if he has a decent amount of removal spells in hand, but if he does not, then he may want to save those removal spells for more important cards like Arcbound Ravagers or Steel Overseers.
And sure enough, Reid uses that Lightning Bolt on the Vault Scourge.
Yeah, another thing that would make it worthwhile to do so is the fact that it was one of 2 artifacts in the battlefield alongside a Mox Opal. So Greg now is going to need to do a little more work if he wants to turn that Opal on.
Good point. How do you like this matchup, by the way? Which deck do you think is favored?
Jund. Yeah,
That was decisive.
Yeah, I mean that's how it's kind of been since the beginning of Modern. So I think though that it's not a slam dunk. Like Jund is the favored deck in the matchup, but Etch Champion is a card in Affinity decks that is very strong against Jund.
Oh, Kolagon's command here, taking down the Steel Overseer and the Mox Opal.
Yeah.
So goodbye, land.
At this point, it seems like Greg is just kind of in nightmare mode. You know, where
that was just a beating from Reid Duke. Kolagon's command, too strong.
Yeah. Now Reid is essentially just playing against, a house pet who isn't really playing anything. Your turn. Oh, it's my turn again? You chose not to do anything?
My cat, who I trained to play Magic very well. He just jumps up on the table and bats all the cards down and then stares into the camera unlovingly. Yeah. Reid Duke, of course, known for being, we were talking about it earlier today, probably the best Jund player in the entire world. What a title.
Yeah, I don't think anybody can really hold a candle to his prowess of these types of decks.
And Bloodbraid Elf. She is back, and she is cascading. Here comes Liliana.
And Reid may not even want to plus this Liliana, as crazy as that sounds.
Why?
His opponent has a bunch of cards stranded in hand at this point. If Reid doesn't have any more lands in hand, those cards may be more valuable to Reid than just random excess cards in Greg's hand. So he does have a land, so he's going to use that. And wow, a Ravager coming out of Greg's hand.
Boom. Bloodbraid Elf into the red zone. Back over to Greg. This thing looks like it's all but over.
Yeah.
Affinity, great at getting out to a fast start. But if you're able to do a little disruption. 2 Signal Pests here for Greg and an empty hand.
And under some circumstances, one would be able to defend a Signal Pest here by activating the Ink Moth Nexus, but it's not going to work. No available mana for Greg. Reid using that Kolagon's command to essentially kill a Glimmer Void, a creature, and a Mox Opal.
Just a 3-for-1.
Backbreaking.
Scavenging Ooze hits the table. Back over to Greg, who, if he falls to Duke here, will still have his day 2 hopes alive if he can win the last round. X2 does make it, comes back to battle here on day 2. Memnite here for Greg. Attacking Liliana here.
Oh my goodness.
I can't watch anymore, and I don't have to. Greg scoops him up. Reid Duke taking game 1 there, ranked currently number 2 in the entire world, number 1 at Jund.
Yeah, I like that.
We should have the little one next to Jund as well. All right, well, Greg on the play here with Affinity's Springleaf Drum. And a land not quite the explosive start Affinity is normally looking for.
Yeah, post-board, Greg does have Shaper Sanctuary.
Really?
Which it could be pretty good in this Jund matchup, I imagine.
Shaper Sanctuary. Whenever a creature you control becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. All right. And there it is. Reid's taking a read of that card. I was playing this in Standard when I was messing around with green-white cats.
Yeah, no, I think this card can be really good. Like, there are a lot of decks that when they play this card on the first or second turn, it becomes really, really hard for, control opponents to beat them.
That's interesting. I mean, is it good enough, though? Like, you're going to draw cards, but would you rather? I don't know.
So the thing is about Jund is that their whole plan is to use removal spells to kill your important cards and eventually run you out of threats that matter. And if every time they kill one of those threats and one of their cards, you're drawing a card, that should mean that you're going to win the game eventually. Reid here definitely responding to the Shaper Sanctuary by killing Greg's creature. But from here on out, Reid's removal spells look pretty medium to bad.
All right, back over to Reid Duke, who will throw it immediately back to Greg after playing a land.
Reid's best card by far in Game 1 is Kolaghan's Command. He drew both copies there.
Nasty.
It was so good.
You only have 2?
Only 2 in the main.
Another Vault Scourge here for Greg. We saw Reid kill this immediately in Game 1. Ravager here.
Yeah, so the first card you draw off the Shaper Sanctuary, it just replaced itself. The second one you drew, you paid 1 green mana to draw 2 cards. That's the best deal ever. And from there on, it just looks more and more disgusting.
How do you think Affinity is placed right now in the current meta?
I think it's gotten a lot better. One of the reasons it's gotten a lot better is that Jund has become a lot less popular. And here we're seeing why Affinity had kind of fallen into obscurity a few weeks ago because of how bad these matchups can be. But Shaper Sanctuary is a nice answer here.
Doing some work.
Yeah, a good sideboard card from Greg.
All right, well, we see that fatal push there. We're going to give a counter to the Vault Scourge, and Greg's going to draw a card. So, all in all, not too bad.
If anybody can find a plan to beat the Sanctuary, it's going to be Reid.
All right, Liliana, here we go.
And Liliana, there's a nice answer to the Shaper Sanctuary. Able to, kill that Vault Scourge without letting Greg draw a card.
There's the Opal. Immediately goes down onto the table.
Now, Greg can finish off the Liliana with Inkmoth Nexus if he so desires.
There's a welding jar from Greg, able to regenerate target artifact if he sacrifices it. And a cranial plating. All right, Liliana down. Fulminator Mage here for Duke. Oh, brutal.
Yeah, and this was really nice by Reid because he found a window where Greg did not have any untapped mana to activate that Ink Moth, and he was able to Fulminate her without giving Greg a Shaper Sanctuary trigger. So Greg essentially down to nothing despite having that Shaper Sanctuary.
Wow, and so many cards on board. Just a land in hand there for Greg.
Really well played here by Reid.
Take notes, class, if you ever want to play Jund.
Though Shaper Sanctuary isn't done yet. There are going to be more cards drawn off the top of Greg's library over the course of this game. And as Reid needs to deal with those, it may give Greg a long-term advantage in a matchup where the longer the game goes, the more it usually favors the Jund deck.
Speeding up the footage a little bit here, as this is a time walk match. Bob coming to play, Dark Confidant for Reid Duke.
Yeah, so Reid with some card advantage of his own here.
Yeah, just lands for Greg. Why not attack for 2?
Yeah, you got to close the game. And that's one of the reasons why Jund is so good and has been good over the years, is because it's so good at disrupting the opponent, but then in a longer game, it closes very quickly with Raging Ravines and Confidants and Tarmogoyfs. Once the Jund deck starts attacking, you only have a couple turns.
There comes another Ravager for Greg, suited up with that cranial plating.
And this welding jar,
Yeah?
also pretty good here. I mean, it can save that Arcbound Ravager. Greg will still get the Shaper Sanctuary trigger. Then if Reid uses another removal spell to try to get the Ravager off the table, Greg will get another Shaper Sanctuary trigger. So if Reid wants to get this Ravager off the table, he's going to need to spend 2 cards and let Greg draw 2 cards.
Greg's cracked it, everybody. This card's looking really good right now.
Yeah, something that Reid Duke does have an Engineer Explosives post board, which I think would be pretty much the best card he could have here.
Maelstrom Pulse from Reid Duke.
And I like this. He's
Yeah.
by targeting the jar, he is able to prevent Greg from drawing there.
And there's Engineered Explosives.
Wow,
Wow.
A very good one to have in this spot.
Jund seems to just have so many tools to deal with Affinity. Back over to Greg, see if he can, what he can do here.
And, Reid, despite playing Jund, a deck that's a pile of spot removal spells, found a way to make his opponent's Shaper Sanctuary pretty lackluster.
Yeah, that is accurate.
Impressive stuff.
Attention players, need 430 Popper. Your parents.
Okay, well, we're going to turn this creature sideways.
Once again,
Dark Confidant blocks
Popper.
confidently.
Your pairings for round 2 have been posted.
Just looks like lands in hand still for Greg, who's been kind of flooding out on the backside of this game.
And again, a really nice block there from Reid. Now he doesn't even have to sacrifice his Engineering Explosives right away. He can just sit with it on the table.
Wow.
He recognizes that if Greg wants to sacrifice a whole bunch of stuff, that's fine.
There's Inquisition. Take a look at my mountain. Sad face. There comes the Ravine. All right, another Scourge go.
And this Head-Turner Explosives deals with the Scourge and the cranial plating. But Greg needed to play something to get it off the table.
All right, there they go. Engineer's Explosive pops. In comes the Ravine. Back over to Greg, who has just not been able to put his game plan together in either of these games against Reid. Reid has been giving us a masterclass in Jund as well, by the way.
Yeah.
All right, Springleaf drum ripped out of Greg's hand thanks to another Inquisition back over to Greg. On 1 life. What do you got? All right. Inkmoth Nexus. Kolaghan's command. And there's the handshake. Reid Duke making it look easy versus Affinity. Don't worry, Greg here in his 10th GP battling for day 2 will get another chance to make it if he can win next round. Round 8, the final round of day 1 here. But there will be more Magic action, of course, because Rich will be here to do some fast, sped-up Magic, I'm told, after all 8 rounds are done. So don't go anywhere. More Magic after these messages.